Rob.
Hello everyone, welcome to Rob's Rebellion. And since it's Sunday for me, I would do a simple Sunday review. If you're an ACBer, you know what Simple Sunday is. I just completed all of the Force Awakens Black Series figures that I own. I thought I would go back to the classics. I didn't go clear back to 1977, but I went back to the Return of the Jedi. See what I did? Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, 30-year gap. Anyway, today we were taking a look at a very special figure in my collection, one that I extremely love. He is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. At the time, you know, we now know him as Darth Sidious, but at the time he was just known as the Emperor. That's right, we are taking a look at the 1984. How many of you watching this right now were alive in 1984? I didn't think very many, or maybe there's quite a few of you. The 1984 mail order Emperor, not from the Power of the Force, nothing like that, just the original Return of the Jedi line. Yes, this was a mail order, like I said. Back in the days where you had to clip the UPC, and people like UPC, on the back of all your action figure boxes, you got this, the UPC code. You had to clip, I think it was 5 of these off of, 5 figures that you bought, plus $7 for shipping and handling, and they mailed you this figure. And I was wondering, what it's going to look like, what the box is going to be like. It didn't come in a box at all. It was in a clear, like, a Ziploc baggie. Not really a Ziploc baggie, but just a clear plastic bag with his cane. And as you can tell, I don't have his cane anymore. I was just a wee young lad in 1984 after having seen Return of the Jedi and how creepy and scary I thought the Emperor was. As much as I thought Darth Vader was cool, and of course Luke Skywalker and all of that, I really started to like the Emperor. And I wish that I had more movies, and I would have to wait till the prequels. And I know people are saying boo, but by Revenge of the Sith, the Emperor really became a favorite Star Wars character of mine. Now this guy, there's been a lot of love, a lot of playing with it, as you can see here. Now I'm going to give you a little story. I've told some of my friends this already on YouTube and Facebook. If you watched Anthony and I's ODC's, man, he looks really creepy there. Star Wars and Batman versus Superman chat that we had. This was the figure I was talking about, and if you haven't watched that, I'll put a link down below. He doesn't look too bad for a 1984 action figure. The story behind this was I begged my mom and dad for this. I had to buy 5 figures, which I was like, yes, I'm going to buy 5 figures. Got 5 figures, cut the UPC off the back of it, and mailed this guy in, and played with it all the time. My dad played fast pitch softball, and I met a really good friend there, one of the other kids, from one of the other ball players. He loved Star Wars too, and he had action figures, so we became fast friends really, really quick. Long story short, we would just not trade, but borrow each other's figures. Like, okay, our parents my dad had a game on a Monday and another game on a Wednesday, so it's like, hey, you borrow my toy on Monday and I'll give it back to you on Wednesday, that type of deal. This was over a weekend, I guess, trade or borrow. He wanted to borrow the Emperor. I thought, cool. Well, since the Emperor was so rare, and I was one of those kids that not many of them had the Emperor at the time, I said, I want something big, for over the weekend. So I got his X-Wing. And on the way, I believe it was either on the way home from the game that night or to the next available game, they had a car accident. They had a really bad car accident. I'm getting really in tight. And I keep saying long story short, everybody was okay, but the car caught in flames, burnt almost to beyond recognition of a car. And guess who was in the car? This guy right here. My friend Chip had put him in the center console, so he wouldn't forget. His mom said, no, make sure you give Rob's action figure back. So they went to go get whatever they could salvage out of the car, and the Emperor was still in the car. And so that's why his face, it's a really long story, I apologize. But I always think there's a cool story behind action figures. That's why his face kind of looks pity. It looks like, man, Rob has really played. You can see right at the corner of the eye there. That's the only heat damage. You could see still some of the charredness from him. So you can see that kind of pittiness in there. That's all from the heat of the car and just whatever was in the interior of the, you know, center console, like glove box, or where the, you know, where the gear shift would be. So that is the story for this Emperor. I mean, we already know about the Emperor. You could see here on the back his production date. It's 1984. I about said 94. So this is a really, really important figure in my collection. A, because I was one of the first ones on my block and one of my friends to have this figure, but it went through such a horrific ordeal to come back to me after a friend of mine had borrowed it. And his parents were both okay, and he was okay, but it was kind of one of those, after the car accident, the car kind of explodes, blows up, movie action type deal. So it was really kind of scary. But after seeing my friend in front of me, one of my first thoughts was, is the Emperor okay? So the power of the Force lives on. So I told you that a long story. It's a Sunday. It's a nice time to just kind of sit back, relax, and tell stories, right? So let's look at the articulation. I apologize for the long story. But every time I look at this figure, I think of my good friend from my dad's fast-pitch softball days for about 5 years, and he and I played Star Wars, so I have fond memories every time I look at this, and to also know I almost lost this guy, and I could have lost my good friend Chip. So let's take a look at the articulation on this guy. This is what I refer to as standard action figure articulation. The good 5-pointer here. So his head turns left and right, arms go all the way around, and the legs come up. That's it. Done. End of story for articulation on this guy. To give you a size comparison, this is what action figures were back in the day, kids. Here is a Black Series Force Awakens Stormtrooper. So this is what we had fun to play with. And I'll bring up another one since it's just the Emperor here. There's no box to show you. I believe I'm going to try and find the original box art for the Emperor. Now, he was re-released later on. You know, of course, like after the main run of the action figure line has ended, then they start doing all the, you know, different variants and the other type of scenes where they didn't do characters from. The Emperor got a re-release I believe a year or so later. So for about a year or two, this was the only way you could get the Emperor, was from the mail-in order. I will bring up one of my other favorite figures that I always told myself I wanted to get so many of these guys, and I only ever got one, and I got it on Christmas of 1983, I believe. I have to believe that was Christmas of 83. Because Return of the Jedi would have come out in 83, so that following Christmas. The Emperor's Royal Guard, I thought they were so cool, and a very underused character. I know they got a lot more use in the expanded universe after the movies were over, but I really wanted to see the Emperor's Royal Guard featured in Return of the Jedi more than just standing at the door and, you know, coming off of the shuttle with the Emperor. So I wanted to throw the Royal Guard up here as well. And I'm sure with just my little story there, I've made this review long enough. But it's Sunday. I just kind of want to sit back, relax, spin a little yarn there, if you will, and share two classic figures from my collection as we are counting down till The Force Awakens. Can't wait for this movie. And we've got more Star Wars and other superhero stuff coming up on Rob's Rogues and Rob's Rebellion. So stay tuned, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.